We live in an era where the formula for success is just incredibly rigid,
Uh,
especially in entertainment.
Oh, absolutely. The prevailing wisdom is that you have to broadcast basically everything you do.
Right. Like you eat a sandwich, you post it, you write half a chorus, you tease it on social media for like 6 months.
Yeah, and then you try to make a dance challenge out of it.
Exactly. It's this economy of constant, relentless visibility. If you aren't constantly in the feed, you basically don't exist.
I mean, the algorithm is basically an apex predator, right? It demands to be fed daily.
It really does.
And there's this pervasive, almost existential fear among creators that if you disappear for even a month, let alone a year, you are just going to be erased from the cultural memory. The machine just moves on without you.
But then you look at the absolute highest echelons of music history, and you find this incredible glaring anomaly, like a musical white whale who completely shatters that entire modern formula. Someone who disappears not for weeks or even months, but for entire decades at a time.
Decades. Yeah.
And when she finally decides to just casually stroll back into the public eye, the entire world stops, goes totally silent, and listens.
It's wild to think about.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you here with us because today we're exploring the enigmatic, enduring legacy of Helen Folasade.
Though you and the rest of the globe probably know her simply as Sade.
Right. We're pulling from this remarkably comprehensive biographical profile of her life, her discography, and just her massive cultural impact.
And our mission today is really to decode the paradox of Sade. Like, how does an artist who takes 10-year hiatuses, who avoids the press like it's a literal contagion, and actively shuns the entire pop star machine, how does she manage to build one of the most profitable and influential catalogs in music history?
It's fascinating. The less she gives the machine, the more powerful her legacy actually becomes.
It defies every single rule of the industry.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does a fashion design student from Essex end up creating the best-selling debut by a British female vocalist ever?
Well, we really have to start with the origin story because it completely dictates the way she moved through the rest of her career.
Right, right.
So, to understand her trajectory, you have to look way outside of a recording studio. She was actually born in Ibadan, Nigeria in 1959.
Okay.
And her middle name, Folasade, it actually means crowned with wealth in Yoruba,
Oh, wow. That is incredibly fitting.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But she moved to England when she was 4 and grew up in Essex. The really crucial turning point, though, the crucible where her identity is truly forged, is when she moves to London.
To study fashion design, right, at St. Martin's School of Art.
Yes.
And St. Martin's is this legendary institution for creatives. I mean, it's not just a school, it's like a cultural incubator.
Right. And she wasn't just studying fashion conceptually. She was actually living it. She was making her own clothes, diving into menswear tailoring. She even modeled briefly.
I can totally see that.
And this background is basically the master key to understanding her early success. When she eventually transitioned into music initially, just singing backup for this British Latin soul band called Pride, she possessed this superpower that most young artists spend a decade trying to get.
Which is knowing exactly who she was visually.
Yes. She didn't need a stylist or an image consultant or like a mood board from some record executive.
Because she was the architect of her own aesthetic from day one.
Exactly. She was already constructing those sharp suits, the slick back hair, the iconic red lip.
So by the time she formed a songwriting partnership with Pride's guitarist and saxophonist, Stuart Matthew Men, and they started doing these mini sets at Pride gigs, she was already presenting this fully formed artistic vision.
Completely. And that actually brings up a really crucial detail that often gets lost when people talk about her.
Oh, about the name.
Yeah. Sade isn't just her name as a solo artist, it's the name of the entire band.
Yes. Let's pause on that, because I think it completely changes how we view her sound. It wasn't just Helen Folasade and a bunch of hired session musicians.
Not at all.
The band was Sade, Stuart Matthew Mann, keyboardist Andrew Hale, and bassist Paul Denman. They forged their sound together like totally organically.
It really did.
But wait, I want to push back on the timeline of their rise here, because looking at the sources, it shows something that just doesn't compute with normal music industry mechanics.
How do you mean?
Well, usually a band forms, they play a bunch of empty dive bars, they hand out rough demos, they slowly build a local following.
Right.
But Sade seemed to step into the spotlight and instantly cause a riot. I mean, they were playing the Heaven nightclub in London in 1983 before they even signed a record deal, and 1,000 people had to be turned away at the door.
It's crazy.
Like, how does a band without a label build that much organic hype in 1983? long before the internet, long before viral TikToks.
Well, it really comes down to the mechanics of London's underground club scene at the time. In the early 80s, London nightlife was fiercely tribal.
Tribal in what way?
Like, you had the new romantics over here, the punk remnants over there, the early synth pop crowds, and word of mouth in these hyper-specific tastemaker circles was just incredibly potent.
Oh, I see.
Sade tapped right into this burgeoning underground soul and jazz funk scene. So you combine this incredibly tight live band playing a totally fresh sound with an unbelievably chic frontwoman who already looks like a global superstar.
Yeah, the tastemakers are going to talk.
Exactly. The DJs talk. The fashion students talk. The hype just became this physical, undeniable force that the record labels had to chase, instead of the other way around.
Which completely flips the power dynamic. When Epic Records finally signed them in 1983, they weren't molding some naive artists.
No, they were acquiring a fully realized enterprise.
And that leads right to the explosion. In 1984, they dropped Diamond Life, and they recorded the entire thing in just 6 weeks in London.
6 weeks.
And it absolutely detonates. I mean, it sells over 6 million copies globally, wins a Brit Award.
Yeah.
You've got Smooth Operator and Your Love is King instantly becoming these massive international anthems.
And they followed it up almost immediately with Promise in late 1985.
Oh, right.
Which became their first album to hit #1 on the U.S. Billboard 200. And that album spawned The Sweetest Taboo, which stayed on the U.S. Hot 100 for an astonishing 6 months.
6 months is an eternity in pop music.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then in 1986, she actually became the first Nigerian-born artist to win a Grammy, taking home Best New Artist.
You know, the demand was so feverish that radio stations actually had to change their operational playbook.
I love this part.
Right. Top 40 radio in the 80s was so heavily reliant on playing just the designated hit singles, but listeners were so obsessed with the sonic texture of this band that radio programmers reinstated this old 1970s FM radio practice.
Of playing deep cuts.
Yes. They started adding non-singles, like that sprawling, cinematic track, Is It a Crime?, straight into their heavy rotation just to satisfy the public.
What's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between her sound and what was dominating the cultural landscape in the mid-1980s.
Oh, yeah. Picture the 80s.
Right, it was loud. You had neon aesthetics, aggressive synthesizers, massive stadium rock drums, vocalists basically belting at the top of their lungs.
And into this totally hyperstimulated environment walks Sade.
And the industry really tried to categorize it. Like, was it smooth jazz? Was it quiet storm?
Yeah.
You know, that late-night R&B format with relaxed tempos?
Or was it sophisti-pop, combining pop melodies with jazz arrangements?
Exactly. They didn't know what to do with it.
It's like she brought a whisper to a screaming match, and somehow the whisper won.
That's a great way to put it.
Other singers were doing these massive, exhausting vocal acrobatics, and she just stood there, totally poised, delivering these incredibly restrained lines.
Our source material actually quotes The New Yorker on this, and they described her voice so beautifully.
What did they say?
They called it a grainy contralto full of air that betrays a slight ache but no agony, and values even imperfect dignity over a show of pain.
Oh, wow. Values imperfect dignity over a show of pain.
Yeah.
That is just the defining characteristic of her entire persona, isn't it?
It really is. She never over-emotes. She leaves space in the music. The bass lines actually breathe. The saxophone is smooth. It's not frantic.
It forces you to lean in rather than blasting you against the wall.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Just as she reaches this stratospheric level of global fame, she does the unthinkable.
Yep.
Every other artist in this position locks into a relentless, exhausting album tour album cycle. You know, you have to cash in while the iron is hot.
That's the industry rule.
But Sade, after releasing Love Deluxe in 1992, which was another massive hit, she just vanishes. For 8 years.
And 8 years in pop music isn't just a hiatus, it's an entire geologic era. I mean, entire genres are born, mainstreamed, and die in 8 years. Grunge came and went in that time, boy band explosion happened.
But I want to challenge the narrative around this hiatus a little bit, because the common story is always that she just wanted to live a normal life.
Right.
But wait, is it really just a desire for a quiet life, or is there an element of intense, almost paralyzing perfectionism at play here?
That's a good question.
Because it's hard to believe an artist of that caliber simply stops caring about the work.
Does she step away because she's living, or because she just refuses to release anything less than a masterpiece?
That is a phenomenal distinction, actually. And the sources suggest it's really a combination of both.
Okay.
It's not that she stops caring about the work, it's that she respects the work too much to force it. In an industry utterly obsessed with constant output, she realized that you cannot write authentically about the human experience if your only experience is the inside of a tour bus or a luxury hotel.
Right, you need actual life experiences.
Absolutely.
Exactly. By moving to the Caribbean, raising her child, and later buying this rundown cottage in the Gloucestershire countryside to renovate, she was gathering real, grounded material.
So the perfectionism lies in only returning to the studio when the well of inspiration is organically full again.
Precisely.
And the gamble paid off spectacularly. When the band finally returned in 2000 with Lovers Rock, it was a massive success, earning her another Grammy.
And then, incredibly, she took an even longer break.
Yeah, 10 full years before releasing Soldier of Love in 2010, and we have to look at the numbers on that 2010 return because it defies all commercial logic.
Sure it does.
Soldier of Love debuts at #1 in the US, selling 502,000 copies in its first week alone.
Unbelievable.
It set a record for the longest gap between #1 albums for a group, nearly 25 years between Promise hitting #1 and Soldier of Love hitting #1.
And you can't forget the tours.
Oh, right.
The 2001 tour grossed $26 million.
Right.
And the 2011 tour, over $50 million.
So the scarcity actually created an insatiable demand.
Yes. Because she never saturated the market. Every single release felt like a monumental cultural event.
So what does this all mean for you? If you are listening to this right now and you're feeling that pressure to constantly be on, constantly producing, constantly hustling in your career, or even just on your social media,
Oh yeah, the burnout is real.
Sade is the ultimate proof that scarcity has incredible value. Setting boundaries and occasionally stepping back entirely, it doesn't diminish your relevance. In her case, refusing to be accessible actually fueled her professional mystique.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that grounding, that total lack of trying to chase trends, it led to one of the most surprising twists in her legacy.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Right. If you ask the average person who Sade's biggest fans are, they might guess, like adult contemporary listeners or jazz enthusiasts.
Sure.
But her influence on hip-hop and R&B is absolutely staggering.
The list of disciples is totally wild. You have the legendary rapper Rakim of Eric B. and Rakim directly referencing Smooth Operator on his 1988 track Microphone Fiend.
Yep. You have Kanye West taking to his blog in 2010 when Soldier of Love dropped. He wrote, "This is why I still have a blog. To be a part of moments like this. New Sade. How much better this than everything else."
And Rick Ross literally declared in an interview, there's never been a bad Sade track.
It's amazing.
And it goes beyond just name-dropping. R&B legends like the late Aaliyah, Brandy, Missy Elliott, they all cite her as a core sonic influence.
And Talib Kweli said he learned the concept of precision as a live performer just by watching her navigate the stage during the Love Deluxe tour at Madison Square Garden.
She even crosses over into heavy metal, strangely enough.
Really? Heavy metal?
Yeah. Chino Moreno, the frontman of Deftones, frequently names her as a massive inspiration. Rolling Stone actually ranked her at number 51 on their greatest singers of all time list back in 2023.
But let's dig into the mechanics of that hip-hop connection for a second. Why does a British-Nigerian singer living in rural England become the patron saint of 90s and 2000s hip-hop?
Well, what do you think? I think it has a lot to do with the sonic architecture of her music. Think about 90s boom-bap hip-hop. It relies heavily on these deep, walking bass lines, sparse drum pockets, jazz samples.
Right.
Sade's band was already building these incredibly spacious, bass-heavy, jazz-inflected grooves. It was practically begging to be sampled or rhymed over.
The sonic alignment is definitely there, I agree. But there is a deep ideological alignment, too.
What do you mean?
Well, what does hip-hop value above almost everything else?
Authenticity.
Exactly. Staying relentlessly true to your own roots, keeping your circle tight, and never bending to what the mainstream pop establishment dictates.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Sade never once chased a musical trend. She never tried to add new jack swing drums in the 90s or auto-tune in the 2000s. She just sounded like Sade.
Great.
So to rappers and producers who pride themselves on artistic integrity and navigating the gritty realities of the industry on their own terms, she became the ultimate symbol of unwavering commitment to self.
It's almost like she is the coolest person in the room exactly because she's not trying to be. She isn't looking around to see what everyone else is doing. She's entirely self-contained.
Perfectly said.
And that self-containment extends deep into her personal life, too, which is full of these incredibly striking contrasts. We talked about her massive success, but back in the 1980s, before the breakthrough, she and her boyfriend were literally squatting in an abandoned building in Tottenham trying to make ends meet.
Wow.
Fast forward, and she is making rare public appearances at Buckingham Palace to receive an OBE and later a CBE.
And for listeners outside the UK or unfamiliar with the honor system, the OBE Order of the British Empire and the CBE Commander of the Order of the British Empire, these are massive national honors bestowed by the monarch.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
You're officially being recognized as a foundational pillar of British arts and culture.
Yeah.
So going from squatting in Tottenham to being decorated by royalty is a breathtaking trajectory.
And throughout all of this, her lyrical focus has remained remarkably consistent. As The New Yorker aptly noted, her songs focus on the heavier lifting inside love, commitment, consistency, friendship.
Yes.
While modern pop music often obsesses over the toxic or fleeting or explosive phases of infatuation, Sade writes about steadfast devotion, mature love.
And we've actually seen the ultimate real-world manifestation of that devotion recently.
Yes, we have. In 2016, on National Coming Out Day, Sade's child, Isaac, came out as a transgender man.
Right.
And Isaac has been very open online, frequently posting these profound messages, thanking his mother for her unwavering, deeply present support by his side throughout his entire transition process.
And this leads to a truly beautiful moment in the source material.
Hmm.
In 2024, after years of silence, Sade actually released a new piece of music.
Oh, Young Lion, right?
Exactly.
Go.
She contributed a track called Young Lion to a compilation album called Tirana. This was a massive project organized by the Red Hot organization to support transgender awareness. And the song is a tender musical dedication directly to her son.
Which raises an important question about how artists choose to use their platforms. Sade speaks so rarely. She does not give interviews. She does not post her opinions online. She doesn't do the talk show circuit.
She fiercely guards her privacy.
So you have to analyze why a woman who values her silence so much chose this specific cause to break it.
Well, it perfectly aligns with those lifelong lyrical themes, doesn't it? She writes about unconditional devotion, and this is the ultimate public display of a mother's unconditional devotion.
Yeah.
When she does use her voice, the impact is magnified 1,000 times, precisely because of her usual restraint.
Mm.
The emotional stakes are just so incredibly high because we know she doesn't do this casually.
That is the profound power of quiet. When you aren't shouting all the time, people lean in to hear what you have to say.
They really do.
Hmm.
And the industry continues to recognize that impact. In 2023, she was invited to be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
And in 2024, she received a nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Plus, she's done some recent soundtrack contributions too, like Flower of the Universe and The Big Unknown back in 2018.
And there are rumors, which, with Psy, you always have to treat with a healthy dose of skepticism given her timeline.
Of course.
But there are strong rumors of a new album in progress. The band reportedly spent a couple of weeks in 2022 at the legendary Miraval Studios in the south of France.
Oh, wow.
And that is a deeply historic space for them as they were returning there for the first time since they recorded parts of Promise and Stronger Than Pride back in the 80s.
I just find myself in genuine awe of how elegantly she navigates fame. Just imagine the sheer, unadulterated discipline it takes to hold back, to wait, and to only speak when you truly have something to say.
It is a discipline most people simply do not possess, let alone global superstars who have entire corporate teams begging them for new material.
Right.
She essentially built an entire universe on her own terms, inviting us in only when the work was completely ready and shutting the door when it was time to live her life. She showed the world that you don't have to surrender your humanity or your privacy or your peace of mind to achieve immortality in art.
You can keep your life for yourself and let the work stand on its own.
Absolutely.
It's just an incredible journey. We started this deep dive looking at an Essex fashion student making her own menswear suits, and we've tracked her path to becoming a record-breaking, genre-defying global icon.
Someone who commands the deep respect of everyone from Buckingham Palace to hip-hop royalty simply by refusing to compromise her vision.
Which brings us back to where we started, with a thought I really want to leave you with. If Sade built one of the most powerful and enduring legacies in modern pop culture through mystery, restraint, and a complete refusal to overshare,
It really makes you wonder about our modern obsession with digital visibility.
Exactly. Are we actually diluting our own personal power by putting everything on display? What would happen if you stopped broadcasting every minor victory and setback?
It's a great question.
What if you took a Sade-style hiatus from proving yourself to the world? Maybe by stepping back, guarding your energy, and cultivating your own white whale of a mystery, you'd finally find the clarity you've been looking for.